Welcome back to episode 9 of the Best of Both Worlds, Singapore's very own health and performance podcast with me, Matt Winter, Doctor of Physical Therapy with training in functional medicine, and Paul McCauley, senior podiatrist, otherwise known on TikTok, you know it as the legendary Paul the Podiatrist. How are we doing?
Yeah, very well. Looking forward to today. Today we're joined by a very special guest in Charlotte Mei, a nutritionist. So, who are you and why should people listen to you?
Well, hello. Thanks for having me here. First of all, I am also both your patients.
True. You're very lucky.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here finally chatting about nutrition. I think, I've spoken to both of you separately about the topic. Sorry, what was your question? I cannot remember.
Who are you?
Who am I?
And why should people listen to you?
Oh, man, that's such a tough question. Why should people listen to me? Well, look, I'm a nutritionist accredited in the UK and Singapore. I've done this for, I cannot believe 10 years now. And my mission really is to help people improve nutrition literacy and improve their relationship with food and their body. Because if you think about it, we eat several times a day. But I don't know about you mates in the UK, but here in Singapore, we've not been taught how to eat. We don't learn that in school. Even if you go to the school canteens and you look at the food that the kids are eating, I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. So my mission is to really help people understand that a little bit better.
God, don't go to the school canteens in the UK. It's even worse.
Didn't
Horrendous.
Jamie Oliver do like a whole revamp?
Not for my school.
I don't know what school you went to, but our school was absolutely unbelievable, obviously. Yeah, it was a state school, but we had really, really good restaurants in the school. So I was very lucky.
Did they deliver to your castle?
Shut up, mate. Come on. My mum's watching.
Anyway, yeah, so we're talking all things performance, but through the lens of nutrition today, particularly talking about how we can optimize nutrition in Singapore, so very relevant to your mission. We're excited.
So, but apart from knowing Matt from being a patient, how else do you know Matt?
We did this thing, hey, Matt, a while ago. I think it's called Augustman. You want to tell us more about that?
Not really, no. Absolutely stitched me up. There is a trace somewhere on the dark web.
Yeah.
All I'll say, it was a long time ago. I think that's enough.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Let's not go
Let's
there.
move on from that.
And so, Charlotte, how are you out of 10?
I would say I'm a 8 out of 10. Look, Matt, I've got a pain in my knee, but it's okay. We'll talk about
I
that
almost
later.
ruined my day.
Yeah, good 8 out of 10 and really excited to be here.
Fantastic. And Matt, how are you feeling out of 10?
I was 4 out of 10. I'm now 6. Permanent residence was rejected. Doctor in healthcare, employ 10 Singaporeans, company pays GST, but don't worry about it. So I don't need it. I'm still here to serve the people. But, comment down below if you think I should have got my PR.
This podcast will help you.
I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. So, yeah, but anyway, on a good note, we talked about my mum doing strength training. Her strength age has come down from 70 to 64 in 3 months.
Mate,
So get in the gym.
you need to take a leaf out of her book.
I do. How are you, mate? How are you out of 10?
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Yeah, having a good day.
Chirpy.
Yeah, life's been good, The socials are really popping, so it's good to see.
Here we go. Should we rock on?
Yeah, well, before we get started, with regards to the socials, if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribing, as the more people that subscribe to us will help us to produce more and better content. So thank you very much for that.
Here we go then. Let's deep dive in. On the face of it, Charlotte, Singapore should be struggling. And we're eating in hawker centres full of salt, sugary foods, MSG. We're drinking coffee out of plastic bags. It has the second highest rate of diabetes in the world. And working in the hospital, I've never seen so many diabetic amputations. What's going on here? And is Singapore really in trouble?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about because we're in the running to be the 6th blue zone country in the world, aren't we?
Unbelievable. How much
I
are they paid for that?
Questionable. I can see some aspects, right, as to why we're on that list. And I think a lot of what you're talking about, like a lot of what you're talking about, like drinking coffee out of plastic bags, I think a lot of that is cultural. Which is really hard to change. There are so many habits, like the way we cook our food. I think Malay food in general, they add a bit more sugar. I was just reading about this the other day, and apparently the food in this region of the world is sweeter to help our bodies regulate better to the heat and the humidity. Not sure how true that is, but very interesting to understand that. But it's tough, right? And you can say the same thing about other countries in the world. For example, I'm half French. I'm not saying that the French people eat croissants for breakfast every day, but that's not, the best way to go about the first meal that you have in a day as well. So there is work to be done for sure. I think with diabetes, that's something that's slowly coming down. The government's pretty good at, putting out all these messages to help push people in the right direction, but a lot of it has to do with education. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people understand food better and how to make informed choices, because a lot of the time people don't know what they don't know. They don't, you're brought up to drink Milo for breakfast every day, thinking that that's what's going to power you. So I think it's all about re-educating people around stuff like that.
Yeah. So if we go to hawkers, what's the best food to eat? And are there any healthy options?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think people forget that they still have agency when they eat out. You can still make, tweaks to your orders. So in general, when I go to eat at the hawker center, there are 2 or 3 stalls that I, beeline for. One is the nasi padang or the economy rice store, because that's basically building your own plate. You get to choose what to put on your plate. And sure, we cannot control what type of oils they use or how much salt, but at least we can choose our macronutrients, right? You can ask for lesser rice, fill a quarter of your plate with rice, the other quarter with some good quality protein, a mix of animal and plant protein, and the other half with, vegetables or just plant foods. Another one is fish soup. So with that, you get lean protein. You just ask for a little bit more vegetables. You can't control how salty the soup is, but you just try to make these tweaks. And your meals are not all consumed at the hawker center. I know in some cases they are, but don't forget that you can still make these better choices at the hawker center. It's not all doom and gloom. And also, I just want to asterisk this: we don't have to eat well 100% of the time. I think we have to remember that we are humans. I like to talk about Pareto's principle here. I think 80% of the results you get comes from 20% of what you do. And to flip that as well, try to eat well 80% of the time, and 20% remember that life happens, right? We like our treats as well. And so I want to remind people not to be too strict with their diets at the same time.
So say I'm going to this economy rice store. What kind of principles can I take in there when I'm thinking about putting that plate together to keep it let's keep it really simple? What do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I usually tell people is take the plate, split it half down the center, and then split one of the half in quarters. So you've got half of your plate that you want to fill with colorful leafy vegetables, 1/4 with rice. Try to go for whole grain rice if that's an option that you can afford, and then the other quarter with lean protein.
And there's different types of protein. I used to eat an economy rice a lot in the hospital. I think I lost a lot of hair because of it. But anyway, I think the choice of meats, because there are different types of meats there, does that matter as well? I mean, there's a lot of talk about processed meats and the problems there. So what kind of meats can people be going for at that store to make that a more healthy meal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talk about whole foods quite a lot. As much as possible, try to choose whole food options. With meat, try to go for, maybe sliced beef or ground pork. For protein, I love always choosing a tofu option. I think that's something that we have in this part of the world that is not celebrated enough. When I was living in the UK, I missed having good, soy options like tempeh and tofu. And we have that in abundance here, and that's a great source of lean protein. So I like to get, one soy option and one meat option.
And for the amount of protein, say per meal, what would you recommend for that?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting one. A lot of people, if you go on Instagram, everyone's talking about, eat more protein, this and that. But I always like to go, look, I'm one of them too. But I like to answer the first question, which is how much do you need? And even the officials cannot agree on what's needed. You will hear something like eat 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. You'll hear 2 grams per kilo weight of body weight. So I like, at least for myself, I'm looking to maintain my muscle mass. I aim for 1.5 grams of protein per body weight, and you just try to split that up into your 3 meals across the day. On average, maybe try to aim for 25 grams of protein if possible. Yeah, but at the same time, I like to make nutrition practical for people. So I don't want you downloading Fitness Pal app and, whip out your calculator every time you're eating. A general rule of thumb, I know it's a little bit archaic, but my word, it works. Just visually, try to aim for a palm size worth of protein at every single meal. And people forget to eat protein at every single eating occasion. I don't just say meal because people think breakfast, lunch, dinner, but here in Singapore, we love to snack, we love to have our supper, and in those occasions as well, it's so important to have protein.
And why is that? Is that because it affects how other food is metabolized, or is it because we need that constant source of refueling our tissues and building and recovering? What's the reason of having protein in every single meal?
Yeah, I think our body needs that constant source of protein. And research has also looked at people who have, let's say you need, for the sake of this conversation, 100 grams of protein. They've looked at people who just consumed it all in one meal, let's say at breakfast, and thinking that, like your body will just like drip feed it to your organs throughout the day. It doesn't work that way. You do need it at every single point of the day. Another thing that I really love about protein is that it can keep you fuller for longer. So this aspect of satiety. And a lot of people, they can have a whole plate of, noodles or rice, and you'll feel full from it, but shortly after you'll feel hungry again. You're like, why am I a little bit peckish? I just had a whole plate of rice. And that's usually because you haven't had enough protein. So carbohydrates digest really, really quickly. Protein and fats digest a lot slower. And so that's what you want to have in your meals as well, so that you're kept fuller for longer.
There's something to do with when you have a massive amount of rice, and then your blood sugar goes up, and then it suddenly like drops off, and then that's when you want that second portion
absolutely.
of rice.
Yeah, so protein, fiber as well helps to taper that.
Yeah.
And the excess protein, so I think my understanding is if we take in more than we can metabolize, which is probably, I think it's like 50 grams now is the thought now, that goes into producing energy anyway. And just a little bit slower, I think we can convert protein into glucose essentially through gluconeogenesis. So that's not wasted protein, that excess that we take in. If people are worried about taking in too much, we still use it.
I can't comment on that confidently, but unless you're taking protein powders and supplements and stuff like that, it's really hard for people to eat protein in excess. So I do corporate nutrition workshops, and I usually talk about protein. And the main question I get is, well, what if I eat too much? And it's almost like,
don't worry, you're not going to get there.
It's likely that you're under eating more than you're overeating protein.
Yeah. And so if we're fairly more athletic, so you like gym, are you encouraging people that go to the gym and maybe train a lot more to eat a lot more protein than the sort of 1.2 grams per kilogram?
For sure. If you're building muscle, and if that's your goal, you definitely want to be feeding your body well.
Yeah.
And maybe hitting about 2 grams per kilogram of body weight would be ideal.
Yeah. And would you recommend taking protein shakes for those people?
That's a really interesting one. So I love the idea of protein shakes. I take them myself, but I see it more as a supplement. I think with a lot of these types of foods, people forget to take a food first approach. They go, but I'm taking this supplement, but I'm taking my protein shakes, but we still want to get food from whole food sources first. And if, for example, you have a small appetite and so you can't eat as much, or you don't have time to get in a proper meal, then that's where protein shakes can come in.
Yeah. I think probably the good and bad thing about Singapore is that protein shakes are so expensive here. To get them, it costs a lot, so you better just go down to Fair Price and grab some chicken, just bang in the air fryer
And blend it out.
7-Eleven, we've got those eggs and those chicken breasts. I don't like what they're preserved in, but it's something, isn't it? It's a good start.
I eat at least 2 of those a day.
Yeah. Look at you now.
Yeah.
Doing very well.
More muscle mass than you.
As
we'll find out soon.
So let's make it simple then. Let's lay out the fundamentals. A lot of our listeners between 25 and 45. What can this group of people do fundamentally to enhance or to make the best of their health for the rest of their life? Are there some fundamentals that we can build on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, some key things, which is I've mentioned one, eat protein in every single meal. When we're talking about fat, try to prioritize fat from whole food plant foods. So things like your avocados, your nuts, your seeds, your olive oil, for example. Try to eat fish, especially oily fish, at least twice a week. I think that's something that we're not prioritizing here in Singapore. That's a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, great for a lot of aspects of your body, especially anti-inflammatory. And make sure that you're getting enough fiber. That's something that we're really struggling with here in Singapore. And so an easy way to try to attain that, I try to give people a little bit of a challenge. Try to aim for 2 to 3 different colors of food on your plate at every single meal. And I'm talking about natural colors. So Skittles, M&Ms, take into account. Or another one, if I can just throw this at the both of you, think about how many different plant foods you eat in a week. So there's this sort of 30 plant food challenge that perhaps you both can try going on.
Yeah, we can definitely try it. I'll have to get one of those farm boxes like I've seen you posting it on your Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, I get these pre-made meals by Fit3. They're pretty good, but it tends to be the same vegetables in each one. It tastes good, but yeah, I'm only getting probably 5 different ones throughout the week.
And we really want to focus on diversity when it comes to our meals. A lot of people say, but I meal plan and I make sure that I get my carbs, protein, fiber in every single meal, but you're eating the same thing every single day. And if we actually talk about gut health, we definitely want that diversity. So aiming for different colors and different foods throughout the week would be really important. So if I can just summarize all of that, it's going to be boring as ever. That's the thing about nutrition. I tell people, look, nutrition's really boring and it's unsexy. But my word, if you stick to the basic principles, it works. So at every meal, make sure that you're getting good quality carbohydrates, whole grains as much as possible, good quality protein. Try to, change it up from animal protein to plant protein. Get your vegetables in. Vegetables, aka fiber, aka color, and you're good to go.
I'm hearing a lot more about fiber recently. What's the benefits to it? Everyone says, we know it helps you poo, and we've talked about that a little bit with Rachel, haven't we, in previous episodes. So I think we kind of understand that. Are there other benefits to it in terms of, I think, glucose control, and how does it help our gut microbiome? If it does, can you share a little bit more about fiber?
Well, how much time do we have? So fiber is amazing. I love fiber so much that I actually did my thesis on this topic.
Here we go. I'm not the research guy anymore, am I?
So,
all right.
Yes, it can improve bowel movements to a certain extent, because if you just focus on consuming more fiber, but you're not upping your liquid intake, you're going to be backed up in there.
I had a bit of an issue last year.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah, I literally awful for about 5 days, but it went on for weeks. I ended up going to Jessie for a massage to help me. But yeah, luckily haven't had any issues since.
Less said the better.
I was on a different meal prep then, and they just didn't. There wasn't enough vegetables in it. Yeah, there was like no vegetables.
Oh, so yours was the opposite then?
It was just chicken rice.
Yeah. So you had no fiber.
Yeah.
And then Charlotte say if you had too much fiber, not enough water.
Okay, but then I went and started taking something tusk?
Psyllium husk.
Psyllium husk.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. So I started taking that, and then it got bad.
Yeah.
Because I had too much too fast and no water. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
So there you go, living proof. Don't do that.
Yeah, and it tastes like sawdust, so definitely don't do that.
Yeah, because you've tasted sawdust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably have.
Yeah.
At uni, cricket initiations.
It
I'm
probably
sure you've done a lot
was.
worse than sawdust. Anyway, back to your thesis, Charlotte. Sorry.
No. This is not about my thesis. But on that note, psyllium husk is actually really well researched for constipation. But like you said, you can't have too much at one go, and you need to pair fiber with a lot of liquid. But fiber is also great. There are 2 types of fiber: insoluble and soluble. They have their own, roles in overall health. It also helps with heart health. It helps with, like you said, glucose control. Again, we don't really digest fiber. It doesn't really break down, but it actually slows down the whole rate of digestion, the absorption of glucose. And in your gut, it does a lot of incredible stuff, especially when we're talking about prebiotic fibers. It helps to basically access food for the organisms in our gut. And that's really what we want for overall gut health.
Love that. So we've got protein, we've got fiber, we've got good complex carbohydrates. We mentioned good fats from different sources, and you mentioned oily fish. Mm-hmm. Can you give some examples of some oily fish that are good, and can you have too much of that as well?
Yeah, good one. So on that point about too much, that's a question I have as well, and I don't have the answer because there aren't any guidelines out there for how much omega-3 fatty acids we should be consuming. But we all know that in general, the population is not consuming enough. When it comes to oily fish, we're looking at things like mackerel, sardines, my 2 favorites, tuna. We're also in the local context, and that's what I always like to stress on. We want to look at things like pomfret, cod. We also can get fresh mackerel in the supermarkets. Canned options are great as well. I never rule those out. And I think we have to be real. Like, yes, we are talking about unprocessed foods, etc. But sometimes we do need food to be convenient. Canned food has come a long way. The technology has improved a lot. And as long as you're reading the ingredients list, you're happy with what's on it, it's totally fine to eat. Obviously, don't rely on it every single day, but it's totally okay to open a can of sardines, pop it on your salad or in your pasta, and you're good to go.
The omega-3 fatty acid, is that good for like reducing your cholesterol?
Yep, it can do that. It's good for brain health, anti-inflammatory. It's great for women as well, especially at certain points of the menstrual cycle. And we're not having enough of it. How some people talk about omega-6 fats or seed oils and all that kind of stuff, which I think is a huge distraction. But when it comes to omega-6 and 3s, we want to just even out the ratios. So people are not having enough 3s, and that's why we are encouraging people to have more fish. And if you are vegan or vegetarian, you can look into taking more nuts and seeds. So walnuts, flax seeds, seaweed is a good source of that as well. But nothing as good as fish.
Yeah. And also heard recently that omega-3s is somewhat protective in muscle loss, or preventing muscle loss as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so something I didn't know until this week. So I haven't actually delved deep into that, but that's something else that it seems to be helping with. So we got good for brains, anti-inflammatory, as you said, cholesterol, heart health, and maybe even preventing against muscle atrophy as well, which is awesome. So talking about fiber, I think it's something really important to address is that colon cancer is the highest or the most prevalent cancer in Singapore, especially in men, and second in women. Why do you think that is, and has fiber got something to do with it?
Oh, hugely, yeah. I mean, if you're not consuming enough fiber in your diet, you're not having regular bowel movements, that can definitely contribute to it. But that's not the only reason why the numbers are so high. We also have to look at things like, overall diet, right? But processed meats, that's another one that can contribute to the rise of colon cancer as well.
What are some processed meats that you see a lot of Singaporeans eating that you think might be some of the culprits?
Oh, that's interesting. Because when I think of processed meats, I think of the diet in Europe, because they have a lot of your hamons and your bacon, your salamis, your pepperonis and stuff like that. I would say in Singapore, probably sausages. In Chinese cuisine, especially Cantonese food, they use this thing called lap cheong, which is our version of processed sausage, which is our version of sausages. And things like bak kwa over Chinese New Year.
A killer.
I love
killer.
it. It tastes so good.
I look at it and
so
I just think I've got cancer. Just honestly, looking at it.
I can imagine you eating it and then suddenly, my joints.
Yeah.
Oh, they're inflamed.
I know, I just booked myself straight down to the GI clinic. It's like, awful.
Charred meats as well. Yeah, that's another one.
How about fish balls? The fish balls, what are they?
They look bad, don't they?
They look bad. The texture.
Look, I'm totally with you. And so I actually went down this rabbit hole, and to the point that I went to learn how to make fish balls because I wanted to know what went into it. Now, the really, really good ones, it's just 100% fish paste. Like you're literally beating the hell out of fish paste and then rolling it into a ball. Some of them out there contain some flour, but I think the more processed ones still have a longer ingredients list. But it's predominantly fish.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I just didn't trust the way it looked.
It also tastes. It tastes.
It
what
does
you
not
would
taste like
expect.
fish.
You would taste it thinking it's processed. Yeah, but great to hear that it's not.
Fair
It
enough.
is still considered a processed food, but I
Yeah.
think it's also important to consider that the accessibility of food, right?
Did you-
Not everyone can buy like a fresh, piece of fish, and so fish balls the next best thing for them.
I often get dragged to Korean barbecue and Steamboat.
Yeah.
And before I get there, I feel unwell.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of processed food, isn't it? I mean, is that good? Is it bad?
Not necessarily. I always feel like you can make better choices. I love steamboats because you can actually get a lot of good protein, unprocessed ones. So it depends who you're going with and what they're ordering. So you can get lots of vegetables in there, great leafy greens. Just got to order well and not be tempted by like the deep fried tofu and the processed meats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
where you're
Yeah,
going
that's
and
good
who
to
you're
know.
going with.
I think I'm going with the
My
wrong.
girlfriend.
Yeah. I'm going with my girlfriend. And
All right. Have you got any other offers?
Yeah.
No, can't say that. Okay, Charlotte. So we've spoken about protein for muscle. We've talked about oils. Bone health. I see this age 25 to 45 as us investing in our future of health. This is the time we can maximize our bone health too. what are your biggest recommendations? This is an area that I'm struggling in, apparently. Everyone will find out soon. What
Me
can I
too.
do, and what can we all do?
I totally feel you. I recently did a DEXA scan, and apparently my bone mineral density is all good, but I'm low in vitamin D, which absolutely sucks considering how much I'm in the sun. But people forget that, or maybe some people don't know that you reach peak bone density in your 30s. And this is so important for women. And I think a lot of people, especially here in Asia, I hear like, oh, you're so young, it's okay, eat whatever you want. But this is actually the time, exactly like what you said, we're investing in our future. So we do have to start now. When it comes to bone health, we're talking about vitamin D, we're talking about calcium. And I want to asterisk this as well. When we talk about calcium, people think, oh, I just got to drink more milk. Dark green leafy vegetables are a great source of calcium. I spoke about sardines earlier. With sardines, especially canned ones, the bones are incredibly soft and you can consume them. Fantastic source of calcium. When we have our soy products here in Asia, tofu or even soybean milk, they are fortified with calcium. Those are great sources. So, make sure that you're eating widely as well. And those, I would say, are the key things, but also strength training. I think that's really important when we want to talk about bone health.
Yeah, and impact as well, right? So, which I didn't clearly have enough of. I have now, this week, a lot of impact, I'll tell you that. Okay, so calcium, vitamin D, magnesium as well, which you also get from green leafy vegetables. Mm-hmm. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Great. Yeah. Okay, that's a good start.
So if we summarise that section for our listeners, can you give me 3 key points to maximise our health between 25 and 45?
Yeah, I would say at meal times, let's keep it simple. Again, visualize that plate, split it in half, split one of those halves into 2 quarters. Make sure that you're getting whole grain carbohydrates for a quarter of your plate, lean protein, the second quarter, and then colorful vegetables or fruits in the main half of it. And secondly, not to overcomplicate it. Think of the 80-20 principle. I think a lot of the time people think it's an all or nothing approach. And if you failed one day, that's it. I'm going to go back to my old ways. But eat well, fresh, unprocessed, unpackaged foods 80% of the time as much as you can. And 20% of the time, go have your cake, your coffee, your drinks. That's totally fine as well. And thirdly, I know this is not really nutrition related, but that all can't work if we're not sleeping well, if we're not exercising. I like to look at health from a holistic point of view. And so we can't just talk about nutrition in isolation. Yeah.
Fantastic, Charlotte. That's what we like to hear.
Absolutely. Love it. Let's move on a little bit. We touched on it slightly early on in the podcast. Plastic bags. They are the bane of my life. When you go to Bread Talk, you get a plastic bag for each of your little things. They put that in a bag, and then they put that in another bag. I don't need a bag in a bag. They ruin the environment. And I know it's a tradition in Singapore to drink hot drinks out of plastic bags, and we love those traditions and the cultures. It makes Singapore so interesting. Is it safe? Are we really ruining the environment? I know you're not an environmentalist, but...
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are an environmentalist. And in fact, we've discussed this before. You are.
I'm very passionate about this topic.
Yeah, right. Well, let's go. Let's wind her up and let her go. Okay, go on. Go, Charlotte.
Look, I really don't know how safe it is, but we are living in Singapore. And I would like to think that, the FSA, all the, big bodies out there have sort of approved this idea of putting hot drinks in plastics. Is it somehow releasing microplastics into our system? I don't know. We don't even know if having microplastics in our system is as bad as it sounds, because typically we can trust our body to actually flush out that, all these foreign bodies that we don't need. There just basically isn't enough data in that space to talk about this. It's hard to say if it's harming us. Is it harming the environment? 110%. I think we have been so used to living this convenient lifestyle for things to be, packaged beautifully, packaged in 3 layers for, be it hygiene or whatever it is, convenience. But on my channel, I talk a lot about these little day-to-day habits you can inculcate to reduce your overall consumption of just items in general. Plastic's a great one to start from. And as much as possible, if you can, bring your own cup. I know this is huge in places like Europe and the UK, where people are a bit more conscious of the space they take up, the material they use in their everyday life. So there are little things like that we can do to reduce our overall consumption of these single-use plastics.
Yeah, and we know, well, a while ago, probably about 10 years ago now in the UK, they took away, you used to get your beer cans, and they would have this plastic holding the cans together, and they took them away. And I look at the plastic bags here, with the little loops around them for drinking, and I know that loop could so easily go into the sea, straight on a fish neck, and, it's going to kill it, just like these can holders used to. So, yeah, it's terrible that it's still in. If you want to see something funny, go onto our Instagram and see the sketch that we've done.
I loved it.
Yeah, we enjoyed filming it, didn't we?
It was good fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlotte. I think that's very balanced. From my point of view, I think you're right. We need to focus on the big things in nutrition that are easy to change, the low-hanging fruit. I think this plastic thing, definitely there's more research coming out. There's a lot more in animal studies, I think, not a lot in human studies at the moment. I think what I would love for the listeners is that they educate themselves, and that anyone listening, go and have a look, do a Google, go on a Google Scholar search and have a look. I think some of the links are to brain health, cardiac health, reproductive health, developmental health in children especially, who are much more susceptible to these now nanoparticles that we can take in. And I've seen autopsy data with finding microplastics in anything from the heart to the penis, and we are storing them. I don't think we know the full implications yet, but please, if you're listening to this, go and educate yourself. There's so much out there now, and I think what we're all about on the podcast is empowerment, right? And so please go and have a look.
Yeah.
Well, can you remember the first time you drank from a plastic bag? When I first came to Singapore and they passed it to me, I was holding it like this because I'm thinking, oh my God, it's hot and it's plastic and surely it's going to come out the bottom. Literally so scared.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite crazy they didn't. So I've
think
never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's really easy to feel anxious about stuff like this, microplastics, etc. And we blame it on the plastics, but we also forget all the pollutants we're taking in on a day-to-day basis. So sometimes I find the microplastic conversation very similar to maybe the seed oil conversation. It's just a distraction from the bigger picture. And I think a more productive question to ask is, how can we, in the meantime, while we don't have enough data, how can we look to reduce our plastic bag, or how can we look to reduce our consumption of plastic? And also, how can we make plastics better? Now, that's not our area of expertise, so we can focus more on the former.
Well, I guess while we're caring for the environment, we're probably helping our own health.
100%. Yeah,
so
even through our
win-win.
diet.
Yeah, nice.
Shall we move on to something else we love in Singapore, the Nutrigrade system? So we've obviously, had a few coffees together, me and Matt, and sat chatting about podcast and other things. Looked at the menu, deciding whether we're going to get a coffee, orange juice, or a Coca-Cola. And you look and you see orange juice, C grade, Coca-Cola, C grade.
Well, even a vegetable smoothie.
Yeah.
Or milk.
Yeah.
Or the coffees, the coffees as well.
This is more annoying to me than plastic bags,
Okay.
because I feel like Singapore's they've had a great idea, great intention. I love the intention, and I commend that. But the Nutrigrade system is purely based on sugar content and saturated fat. First of all, ignoring that some saturated fat is very beneficial, but ignoring the other micronutrients in those drinks. So I was a common man, name dropping, and they had a lovely vegetable smoothie, C grade, and as you say, the bubble tea can also be C grade as well. So we're not. It doesn't seem to be considering the rate at which that sugar is absorbed, and that's affected by what else is in the drink, like fiber, and it doesn't consider the micronutrients. So I think it's very misleading and reductionist.
100%. I'm with you. It also doesn't consider whether or not it's added sugar or naturally occurring sugar. And that is the part that really annoys me. Because when we're talking about naturally occurring sugars, although, yes, it does contribute to your overall sugar intake, it's different to added sugars. And added sugars is what we might want to spend more attention, in trying to reduce that. It is frustrating when I see that an orange juice is C grade and something else that's incredibly processed is of the same grade or sometimes even better because maybe they rely on sweeteners, for example. So exactly like what you said, I think it's important to, just think a little bit further, consider the sources of the sugar. What else does that drink contain that you could benefit from? It's good in the sense that it it kind of just like lights the first, bulb in your head to think like, oh, this is actually a C. Can I make a better decision? As opposed to before when we didn't have any of this, people are just blindly ordering drinks. So I just hope that people are not getting too obsessed about it, but, think a little bit further than just the grades.
I'll just be going down the menu. All right, water, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not tap water either here.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it'll be. You'll have to.
Well,
be.
not in plastic bottles either, please.
No, can't be having that.
Just air. Dust.
Sawdust.
Yeah. Your specialty.
So Matt and I deal with people who are in pain every day, and there's a link with gut health and chronic pain. And of course, Matt was talking about this research. How can patients adapt their nutrition to reduce their inflammation and improve their pain?
Yeah, usually when we talk about inflammation, it's omega-3 fatty acids. That's what we want to focus on. So once again, your oily fish, try to get that at least twice a week. Nuts and seeds, seaweed. But first of all, it's just having a good overall diet. Again, it sounds boring, but that's what we want to aim for. I think that's the baseline, sleeping well, getting enough hydration. All these things are key.
And for some people, are there certain foods that are worse for them than for others? So we hear a lot about food sensitivities these days. Some people seem to react to dairy, gluten, things like that, and they can set off inflammatory reactions as well. Is that something that you counsel your clients on as well? Is that relevant?
I don't do stuff like that.
Yep.
Also because I don't do one-to-one
Yep.
consultations. I am hearing a lot about that. And my main piece of advice is seek help from a dietitian who can actually do like a proper food diary with you, do a proper elimination diet. I think the most dangerous thing is when someone just goes to do an allergy test. And what's likely to happen is that you'll be told that you're allergic to these 20 things when that might not be the case because it's incredibly sensitive. Doing a food diary is the number one thing to do, in my opinion. You don't have to do it every single day. If your symptoms are really bad, you can do that. But just looking at what you tend to eat over the weekdays and the weekends, maybe take, 2 weekdays, 1 weekend, and be incredibly honest with yourself because in food diaries, that's where we see people, you tend to hide certain things because you maybe not consciously, but you just forget that you had this, I don't know, maybe two candies that could actually be contributing to some of your symptoms.
Yeah, and a lot of the reactions are delayed as well, so they're not necessarily straight after. Like we hear a lot about, say peanut allergies, and these are these IgE responses that people react to immediately. But some of these responses can be a few hours later or even the next day. I mean, I don't tend to give specific advice now, but when I was doing a lot more nutritional stuff, I've noticed patients in pain, but they also had skin rashes and they tend to be fatigued. I was like, look, have you considered just trying coming off dairy? For example, very common intolerance, lactose intolerance in Asia, Southeast Asia. And their skin clears up and the joint pain goes away. And that, I'm not advising that people do that now, but there is certainly something to it. And I would agree with you, dietitian and functional medicine, nutritionist, GP that's trained in this perhaps. I would highly recommend it.
And also
personally.
see a therapist. I think a lot of it could, boil down to stress. I think we speak about that quite a lot. Sometimes I come in to see, I'm like, I've got this pain and that pain, and you're like, yeah, you're just too stressed. I mean, obviously that's not the main reason,
Yeah.
but it could be, one of the main reasons for a lot of people, especially in this part of the world.
Well, the question I think I've asked you, Charlotte, is probably, well, what else is going on in your life? Like, how are you?
Yeah.
Right. So I think, the other question is which is why we say, how are you out of 10,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And even I ask my patients how stressed they are out of 10 in the last week. And to be honest, most patients say at least 7 out of 10. Whereas I've previously said that my stress often doesn't get up that high. So I'm very lucky.
So omega-3 fatty acids, considering maybe food intolerance, is definitely looking at stress as a cause. Overall sugar intake as well?
Oh, yes, that's definitely one to
Yeah.
consider. And I guess that for me goes into the bucket of your overall diet, to make sure that nothing is, you're not consuming anything in excess.
Yeah, nice. And then in terms of like supporting healing, do you talk about, something we've seen in the literature recently with soft tissue healing and tendon is collagen working with vitamin C for tendon tendon health. Is that something that you think is important, or is that something you think about?
It's something that I am slowly opening up to be very honest, because for the longest time I've been very skeptical about collagen and how the body actually utilizes the collagen that you consume either through food or supplement. But yes, collagen plus vitamin C, there is emerging research in that space.
All right, so if we move on to one of our favourite sections, the pet peeve section. So it's a pet peeve of your profession. What would your pet peeve be, Charlotte?
Oh gosh. How many points can I add to this?
Do you know what? Should we give it? No, we
You can
can't.
get as many as you want. Yeah, well, you just see if you can boil it down.
Let's get it to one. Let's be fair.
I think for me, it's misinformation. You know, now we've got your chat GPTs, we've got social media. There are so many people out there spreading misinformation. And it is really frustrating, especially in our spaces, when it really has to do with someone's health. And you could have this, maybe influencer who is speaking in this really confident manner and like, I only eat meat, I'm on this keto diet, I have butter at every single meal, plants, it's a huge lie. And that really, it undoes all the work that we've been doing. And that's frustrating. So we can't stop that. We can try to drain it out with our content that is evidence-based. But I would like to encourage people out there to really, think twice about what you're consuming. Try to go to the source. Ask yourself, how true is this?
Yeah, I think definitely follow you on Instagram. I love how you're filming the video, you're talking, you're eating at the same time. You're doing so much. How can you do that?
Yeah,
I can't.
No.
If you're watching me with my shoe in the hand, I'm like, yeah.
I can't even eat properly. I mean, if I just eat, I'm dropping it everywhere, let alone talking and eating and presenting. They're very talented.
Yeah. So do you want to give a shout out to your Instagram handle?
Yeah, the Charlotte Mei. And my nutrition podcast, In a Bite.
Yep.
So I've got 2 seasons. The first one, you're just going to hear me drone all about, food. It's sort of like my FAQ about nutrition. So I talk about things like microwaving food. Is it really that bad for you? MSG, etc. Frequently asked questions. Yeah.
Can we ask now? Is
You
it
didn't
too
know
late?
about
Is
this?
it too late? Can we ask?
We can touch on that in a little
Okay.
bit. But season 2, I actually speak to other health professionals. So I speak to like a neurosurgeon, a dietitian that specializes in women's health, a TCM specialist, so traditional Chinese medicine. Because, as we all know, health is not about one discipline. We got to look at multidisciplines. So, yeah.
Surely there's
that's the
room for a
podcast.
physio and a podiatrist at some point.
Absolutely.
The good thing about your podcast is that it's bite-sized. Hey?
Hey,
Hey.
honey, I
Yeah.
knew it. I knew you
Yeah.
had it in you. My pet peeve.
All right, we're letting you have one today.
I don't normally get one.
You love moaning.
No, but that's what the English do the best. And I'm surprised you haven't got more. No, I just think we've really sort of overcomplicated nutrition a little bit. And I think it's become quite a scary area. I definitely have been through periods of time of sort of obsessions about different areas of nutrition, and I don't think it served me well. So what I've loved today is that you've really kept it simple, and I think just nutrition is also like exercise has become something that we get very emotionally attached to. I think we need to take a step back and be committed to consistency and slightly detached from the immediate results of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like using this analogy of looking at your overall health as a theater production. Your everyday habits, the food that you eat, your sleeping habits, exercising, these are your starring actors and actresses. And you want to get that down pat. You want to make sure that they've got their script right. They're consistent on a day-to-day basis. And then you can look into the supporting actors, like your supplements, your prebiotics, probiotics, and all of these peripheral, items. That's what people tend to focus their attention on when perhaps they're still smoking excessively, not getting enough sleep, not managing stress, not eating enough fiber. So let's focus our attention on these,
Lead actors.
Yeah, lead actors. There you go.
Great. So, final question or final sort of part of the podcast that we also love is our magic wand section.
Not like that.
Hey. So, what is your one wish for our listeners and our community in terms of nutrition?
Oh, wow. I love this question. I would say, and this again is going to sound so basic and so boring, but it's so important. Listen to your body. I think we've come to a point where we have forgotten how to listen to our bodily cues. Are you hungry? Are you full? A lot of the time we have lunch because it's lunchtime, but are we actually hungry? Are we listening to what our body needs? A lot of the time, women, for example, we go through our menstrual cycle. When we're at the point where our body actually biologically needs more food, and that's why we have cravings, we try to dampen it and we're like, no, I don't eat that much. But listen to your body. If you're feeling hungry, your body's telling you something. So to be, to tap into that a little bit more.
What's your body saying at the moment, Matt? Since your DEXA scan?
That I'm struggling and I just need to really think about my life. Reevaluate everything I'm doing. Eat more protein, basically.
Yeah. Work harder.
Charlotte, thank you so much. I think you've really sort of simplified this for us, and hopefully taken that fear out of some of these nutritional decisions that people are making. Hopefully there's a few actionable points that people can take home and start to implement that straight away. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have shared that, have shared this platform with you guys as well. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So that's all from us from episode 9 of the Best of Both Worlds podcast. Look after yourselves, keep things simple, and remember, pull the big levers in nutrition too. See you soon.
Lovely. And also make sure that you subscribe to our channel, and also give us a follow on Instagram. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.